I am an artist and a researcher. I research on practice-based research. So I suppose part of my language is visuals and text, and I like to do my presentations with both. Thanks very much. It's been absolutely great to be in this little group discussing these issues up till now. Thanks very much for inviting me and including me in this event. So I haven't met most of you before. I think, well, I know 3 people. And my area is in the field of electronic literature. And I think that I moved into that particular field as well when I started doing my research, like at the, at the beginning of the 2000 or end of the last century. And I was looking precisely for new ways of writing, new ways of communicating, new ways of doing poetry, of publishing, and this kind of thing, and collaborating. And I was looking at experimental poetics, concrete poetry, visual poetry, conceptual art, and these were all my influences in the development of passing, in a way, from the page into the digital medium, dealing with these kind of concerns, the concerns of the author, the writer, the reader, the engagement of the reader in the work, collaboration. So anyway, today I thought in order to deal with some of the issues, in terms of the author, the relationship between art, literature, and society, what kind of role the artist, the author can have and should play in society, how we use new artist forms like literary or aesthetic experimentation to bring out political and societal issues. What strategies and approaches can we use, by breaking the kind of restrictive and conventional ways to find poetics of expression, which are more in between the image and the text, through languages, visual, sound, performance, interaction, participation. So there are all these different strategies, obviously, that we find in order to communicate these issues. And in terms of the author, who is the author, artist, curator, roles, this is very difficult to specify very often in collaborative practice when you work as well in digital media. And I also thought that the role of the translator or communicator, in a way, is also quite important in this sense. So what I will do is I'm going to show you, well, because through my art, I research through my artwork, and I'm going to show you the work Connected Memories, which I thought it was very appropriate for this kind of event, since it has to do with politics and crossing borders. And Connected Memories is a fluid, interactive, poetic, generative narrative without a focus point or beginning or end, as opposed to a system founded upon ideas of center, margin, hierarchy, and linearity. And it consists of a series of interviews conducted with refugees living in London, and it is activated by clicking on common words, keywords, that link these real stories. And it works as a digital platform as well to archive and interconnect and share and perform the stories. This work, I did it already in 2010, but it is obviously very relevant now. And I did it mainly because there was a conference in, I don't know if you are familiar with ICEA, the International Symposium of Electronic Arts, and there was a panel on the interactive storytelling and memory building in post-conflict society. So I did this project, especially for this conference, and then it's been exhibited and performed in different places, and also published under the Creative Commons online. So I think that this my way of discussing about the issues that we are here talking is through my work, and this is how I think about the issues through producing work like this. For instance, when you think about the aesthetics and the poetics to generate these kind of fractured realities and the formations of connected memories, the viewers need to interact with the piece by clicking on color-activating link words. And these chosen words were the ones that were repeated themselves in the different narrations and highlighted the key issues coming from the interviews. So there was in the Victoria and Albert Museum in London, which is where I live, every year they also do this Refugee Week, and they have a program of talks, which is very interesting because different refugees go to the Victoria and Albert and they take you around the museum and perhaps select an object, and they talk about their story through the object. So that's also a really good way to incorporate, narrative, poetics through that particular way as well. And there were like two sisters, and one of them was talking about her experience in Rwanda, and they were terrific. But she said that she actually wanted to pass this to her children, and she was explaining these stories to her children, and she wanted to make sure that this was known, while her other sister just wanted to forget about this, put it aside, and she just wanted to move with in life, which was two very different approaches in there. But in order to represent this kind of realities that are forgotten and can reappear and be connected again with another extract, then I produced this work, which is this is a screenshot from the piece which I can show tonight. And so you click on one of the words, and there is a text coming, and then you click on the same word, and then there is a different text from a different person telling their stories, yeah? And they are all interconnected together. So it was my intention to blend two meanings together, one of the literal part of the work, the narrative as a fundamental of human communication, and the reading of the legible extracts, and the other, the textual narratives in the form of generative visual poems, where simultaneously the eye and the brain are functioning to reveal the semantic meaning as well as the visual abstraction of the text. So as the participator explores and experiences the work by connecting the extracts from the narratives appearing in the screen, the fortuitous position of extras produces new relationships, and in the process, a constant current of meaning, connections, and narratives, shifting from the semantic linguistic meaning to the visual, from the literal, the legible, the transparent, to the abstract memory, and simultaneously creating a poetic space of readable and visual textualities, connecting memories, blending them, and making them disappear, in turn to make other memories appear. And there is somebody, Richard Langham, I don't know if you know him, that he writes about had a fantastic book in 1994 about the electronic word, and he talks about this kind of textual surface now is a malleable and self-conscious one. All kinds of production decisions have now become authorial ones. So as the readers, we have to be taking all these authorial decisions as well in where you take or where you click or where you go. And we are all the time looking at and looking through in the textualities of, let's say, the internet. And so yes, through my work, I research those kind of concepts to do with language, literature, and text, reader engagement, and textuality, the materiality, the visuality, the aesthetics, the poetics, the meaning production, whether it's semantic or it's visual. But also very often there are pertinent content as well, yeah? So in this case, it's the stories of the refugees. And So I saw myself involved into this theme that I wasn't, I'm not a sociologist, if you want. But I talked to lots of refugee centers, and I took lots of notes and met lots of people, and it was a beautiful project to develop. And these are screenshots, and the interesting thing is that the stories have, they told me verbally, but then I developed them with a programmer, with Silvestre, into processing, using the processing language, into these kind of fluid images, but then you can also freeze them. So it goes like, from the oral into the fluidity of the text, into the frozen of the text as well. And it was interesting because presenting this work recently somewhere, somebody said that these almost look like bombs or something. And I have never thought about that in that way, but those are the visual aspects as well. So, but because the extracts were so powerful, then, I have to think about very strongly and carefully about how to integrate these incredible and forceful stories using technology to produce the interactive work and still conserve that strength. How to, so then you have to think about how to develop the architectural structure, the dynamic system, the kind of different aesthetic decisions in the representation of the different identities, perhaps through fonts or things like that, visual. So here there is another extract. And then, so with this work, I think encompasses many of the aspects that we're questioning in this symposium in connection to the role of art in society, the poetic and the aesthetics possibilities to engage the reader, the role of the author, the curator with the share of the stories, the collaboration with programmers, the impact of the work, the dissemination online, the many formats the work can take in terms of published in exhibitions or readings, papers, presentations, online, or, also an anthology. And just very quickly, in terms of the production and collaboration, I thought I just wanted to bring this as well, but the production process, in terms of the double view, the linguistic signifiers, the visual language, the kind of combinatory text through the generative systems, the remixing of the stories, the perform of the generative textualities, the performative text in itself that is also moving, and the role of the viewer, the reader, like clicking and clicking, moving the machine kind of thing. And so the performative of the reader as well. And then the most important thing is the share of the stories through the performance of the work. And I was very interested when I have read this in front of other people, or if you have it in an installation, how this goes further than just staying in the installation, but the kind of conversations that will develop afterwards. And this is one of the anthologies which the work is published as part of the Creative Commons in the ELMSIP and as part of the Electronic Literature Organization. Then with Susana Hosarova, we also organized this, co-curated this exhibition in Slovakia, in Košice, and repurposing in electronic literature. And I show this work in there. And then just to finish, I suppose, just think about the methodology in terms of producing this work as the digital literacies, the use of open source. I think is very important because this is again about the sharing of culture, the remixing, and I think we were mentioning already before about this idea of what is it that you're interested in, whether money or the sharing of culture and ideas. And yes, the new writing, the new readers, the new author that appear with these new textualities online. and the new creative possibilities, and then the interaction with the text that I was saying about looking at and looking through the text, but also, just to mention Arseth describing this action as an ergodic way, he calls it, a way of choosing and taking decisions that is a participation that shifts from effortless participation to a non-trivial effort of traversing the work instead of merely interpreting it. So you're not interpreting the work, but you're actually traversing the work as well and thinking through it. So yeah, and then let's say that the reader becomes like the operator. There is the links, there is the navigation, there is the hypertext, and the cybertext machine kind of thing. So yeah, I think I'll leave it in here. Was that okay?
Yeah. Thank you very much.